Hi, and welcome to the Boulder Bookstore YouTube channel. My name is Liesl, and I'm the buyer for the Children's and YA department here at the Boulder Bookstore. And I'd like to welcome you today on this gorgeous snowy day. We did have the beginning of school last week, and now we've just rushed right into winter, so that's exciting. But that got me thinking about my favorite genre a little bit. Fantasy. I do really like fantasy. I like young adult fantasy, and I like middle grade fantasy as well. So I've got a couple of things to talk about here. I read this one over the weekend, DEEPLIGHT. It's just absolutely stunning. It came out a little bit ago, but it is still in hardcover. It sort of takes place in a vaguely, it felt to me like ancient Greece, or maybe not ancient Greece, but sort of the setup of the Greek Isles, where each island sort of has its own monster that lives in the deep, which they call gods, their own gods per island, and so each island sort of has a affinity and a relationship with their god. 30 years ago there was some sort of cataclysm and all the gods have disappeared. Basically they started attacking one another and eating one another. So there's been 30 years of godless times. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? I don't know. You got to read the book to find out. We have our young protagonist. He starts out as a sort of small-time con man, but he does get caught and he ends up working for, working off his indentureship at a monastery for old priests. The priests have nothing to do because there are no gods to worship, but there are old stories floating around. What I liked about it is it's a lot more complicated than what I just said, even though what I said sounded complicated, because the world building and the magic that they use to describe the land and to get the action to happen is pretty phenomenal and very complicated for a middle grade book. So I would, put it in a sort of that upper middle grade, because there's a lot going on and a lot of reality twisting and some bending in order to get the magic to work, but I thought it was phenomenally well done. So really, really good if you like intricate, complicated world building and fantastic characters. Yeah, it was one of those books actually where you sort of, it's gonna go wrong and you're so mad at this kid because you just know it's gonna go wrong, and he knows it too, but he still does it. But the story works fantastically and it was super satisfying. The whole ending was amazing. The next two, the ODDMIRE, this one came out maybe I want to say a year and a half ago. It's in paperback right now. It's sort of a Halloween-y book. It reads younger than the DEEPLIGHT, so if you have younger kids, I would say probably 9, 10 in there, but also deeply satisfying for an adult reader too, because I like William Ritter's writing. I think he does a wonderful job. He wrote a series called Jacoby, which I really liked and totally recommend that too. Anyway, ODDMIRE, the world has been divided, as frequently happens in middle grade and books, is that there's the human logic, sciencey kind of world, and then behind the gate, behind the fence, behind the forest, there's the magic of the gnomes and the elves and what's going on there. There's been a crack in the wall, and in order to bring the magic back to the magical side, the goblins have to do an exchange, the changeling. So hence the name of the book, The Changeling. So you have to exchange, the goblin child for the human baby, but of course it goes wrong. So we have two kids. You don't know which one is which, but they're both being raised in the human world until when they're 13, they get called to go on it, get called back by the deep forest. And it was super satisfying. It was really well written. There's a lot of great characterizations. Some of it was dark. A lot of it was quite funny, as is appropriate for an early middle grade book. So I like it. I haven't read this one. I'm kind of saving it for this weekend, and when it snows, ta-da! So I'm ready for this one this time. So this one is called The Unready Queen, book 2 of the ODDMIRE series. Another jumping up in grade level, this is YA fantasy. Again, I think it's been a couple of years since the Merciful came out, because it is in paperback now. If you like world building, politics. This is definitely a fantastic series. It's a caste system in a way, so that's sort of an interesting thing to reflect upon now in these days, especially with the book Caste that Olivia was mentioning earlier, or will mention in the future. Especially with that book Caste come out, it sort of makes you think about hierarchies and how they evolve. But anyway, the crows, all the castes are named after birds, so that's sort of also something interesting. So you refer to a group of the clan as the crows, the ravens, not the ravens, the storks, and they all have a specific sort of role to play in society. The crows are plague killers, so they're the only ones immune to this plague that is going throughout the world and has been always going out. But for some reason nobody likes them, because even though they're basically saving the villages from plagues, they're sort of looked down upon, and they're the lowest of the low, the unclean. And so they are honor bound to go to the village as soon as the plague smoke goes up and deal with the plague, but frequently the other members of the society renege on their deal. They don't pay them, they kind of chase them out of town whenever they can. Anyway, the whole system is starting to collapse, and the crows are poised to perhaps get some retribution for this centuries of ill treatment. And there's, a false prince, there's evil queens, there's machinations, there's a really great familial tribe feeling in the clans, in the crows at least, because we are following the crows through this series. A lot of super great action. Like, really set aside some time, because you're gonna just pretty much want to read it in one gulp. And this one came out, The Faithless Hawk. So this one is also just come out, and I look forward, once again, now that it's winter, to sitting down on a Sunday when it's snowy and just going through it and reading it all in one gulp. Very exciting. I think the back of it says, richly textured story of rage, romance, and rebellion, according to the Kirkus Review. So that's it. Thanks once again for joining us at the Boulder Bookstore. I hope you find something to read today, and thanks for subscribing. Bye. Power went out.